This is Our View, the television voice of the Washington Federation of State Employees, the people who work for you. The attacks on public employee negotiated pensions continues under full steam across the country. Here in Washington, it's no different, and state employees have taken the battle into the courtroom. We're there defending ourselves and standing for all workers now being threatened.
We're fighting to preserve our income level. Without a cost of living adjustment, pensions would flat out not be sufficient to meet our needs. And we paid in for many, many years, and we expected and we were guaranteed that there would be cost of living once we turned 66, and the state has not lived up to that commitment. And it's ludicrous to think that retirees can go without cost of living adjustments year after year after year. Obviously, there's real effort to do away with defined benefit pensions, and they're the backbone of being able to have a comfortable retirement, which you've worked many, many years for. The Seattle Times thinks that retirees should be subsidizing the educational needs instead of the legislature taxing, well, obviously taxing Boeing or taxing other people that have had super tax breaks, like the estate tax and so on. The Times is against public employees, basically, period, but that's a whole nother issue. Well, across the nation, there seems to be an effort to do away with workers' rights, to take away benefits, to lower the income level of your average citizen. And this is going to have major impact on all economies in all the different states in the long term. States that depend on income, on sales tax. I mean, if you don't have the money to spend, you're going to spend less, and states are going to receive less income. I mean, that's especially true in Washington, of course, where we rely on sales tax system. Young people working now, unless they start recognizing the need to fight for maintaining the benefits that people have earned through battles for the workers that came before them, they're going to find themselves in big trouble. You read now where people take money out of their 401ks when they have emergencies and so on. And if you're relying on a 401k system and then it's there that you end up pulling out money in emergencies, and then it starts a downward cycle as far as having a stable income when you retire. They expect people will work forever and then work for minimum wage. We're in big trouble right now, I think, in terms of the effort that's going on in the country to take away rights rather than to improve living and working conditions.
Many of the people who work at SeaTac Airport are provided with public assistance. We're not subsidizing them as much as we're subsidizing their employers. A move started to pass an initiative to raise the minimum wage in the community to $15 an hour. At the recent convention, just days before the vote, Federation members staged a rally in support of those workers. Days later, the voters said yes.
It's a wage initiative. It's a good job SeaTac proposition that's going to be, setting some standards for folks that are working at the airports. It's going to be raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour for airport workers. It's going to be providing job and safety standards. It's going to provide sick leave for those folks working at the airports and in the SeaTac community.
Only made sense to hold a rally in support of this Proposition 1, be in labor and fighting for a decent pay and a living wage.
the working poor and a lot of those folks working within the airports can qualify for food stamps. They can qualify for government assistance for healthcare. They can qualify for a number of different programs that we as state employees provide and that we taxpayers pay for. So basically we're subsidizing these corporations that are taking massive profits off the backs of their workers at the expense of the taxpayer and at the expense of our communities.
In Idaho, the AFL-CIO put itself in the middle of a rally in support of immigration reform. It was a statement that the labor movement supports the rights and the dignity of all workers.
It's time for meaningful immigration reform. Reform that stops breaking up families. Reform that protects and keeps the exploitation of workers from happening in this nation. It's time that they wake up. But you need to understand, the Idaho trade labor movement and all of our brothers and sisters in organized labor are not and will not support an idea that makes immigration and the workers a second-class, underclass citizen. We will not tolerate that.
While the Paris city government debated further changes in the local school system, teachers and parents gathered in front of the Hotel de Ville, or City Hall, to voice their protest over the changes that have already disrupted students as well as families.
The week is longer for the pupils, so they are more tired. But the time of teaching is the same than last year. So it's not better for them. And we finish school, the pupils finish school earlier the Tuesday and the Friday, just to do activities that are not teaching and activities that are not well organized. So we wanted to stop because all our work is to make the pupils not confused about what is the fact of learning, the fact of getting some knowledge from a teacher.
Il semble que le maire de Paris et le recteur de Paris n'emploient plus le terme d'ajustement. Pour l'instant, on reste...
They want the people from the town of Paris to do activities that are not teaching activities or learning activities. And they put a lot of money in those hours of fun time, I don't know, just not to have a better teaching for the children, but just to have more fun. But it's not real fun because the children don't have quality activities. So everybody loses.
Ross Reeder gives us a view of history as we commemorate the birth of a very famous trade unionist from a time long ago.
December brings us the winter solstice and time given for some to commemorate the birthday of the most famous carpenter of all, Jesus of Nazareth. My reading of Jesus, he was very much a man of his times. He was punished for his unusual opinions and actions. He was representative of cultural and social changes going on in what we knew as the civilized world. When King David and son Solomon wanted to build a temple, the skills necessary were not available among the agricultural workers and herders in his own society. David petitioned his friend Hiram, king of Tyre, to send Phoenician craftsmen to do the work. Phoenicians, an offshoot of the Semites, were a manufacturing, commercial, and seafaring nation. The Old Testament describes Phoenician craftsmen as skilled and cunning in stone and timber, and good at solving all sorts of technical problems. They taught many Israelites their crafts, and probably took them into their membership of their craft unions. The Israelite craft workers realized the urgent need of the organization to protect their craft and their wages. It stands to reason that a carpenter working but a few miles from the capital city of Jerusalem might be a union member, and he would be apprenticed, and maybe even to his father. A good union member, his sense of justice, would be part of what got him into trouble with the authorities of his day. Israel's prophets had repeatedly and relentlessly criticized the nation's leadership for betraying the poor and vulnerable members of the community. Jesus was a man promoting justice, dignity, and love, a big part of the cultural and social changes mentioned above. It's part of what Jesus learned in his union. In the Greek and Roman empires, trade unions designed to deal with the economics of life were active openly. The unions existed partly because of the kind of society that there was. In Jesus' time, the Carpenters' Union in Phoenicia and Palestine is said to have been 700 years old. So Jesus the carpenter, as a member, would have learned attitudes as well as skills. The citizens of Rome and Greece were the only ones who were considered capable of understanding gods. The soulless workers weren't allowed to worship the citizens' gods in their fabulous temples. Ironically, the dominant society allowed organizations of non-citizens to have their own gods and their own temples. Some of them were beautiful, records show. The unions were also interested in developing solidarity, acknowledging the dignity of work and the individual worker, and in creating a loving society. They also had what they called a common table, where the workers and the members would dine regularly with provisions purchased cooperatively, like the common table of Jesus and disciples. Early Christian communities found the unions open to philosophy being developed. Sometimes, because of potential persecution, the unions hid the small communities in their temples. When the new communities were developing, they adopted some of the union practices. The unions took Sunday off. The new communities wanted to be different from both the Jewish and the citizen traditions, so they adopted the same day. At the union common tables, a deacon was the person who served the food and saw to the comfort of union diners. In the church of my youth, my dad was a deacon and helped serve communion. Most unions initiated members by baptism, a practice adopted by the young Christian communities. Never let it be said that unions have lost their purpose. We're just getting started.
This has been Our View, brought to you by the proud members of the Washington Federation of State Employees. We remind you, when you accept a paycheck for your hard work, you don't give up your rights. Thank you for watching and wish you the best for the holiday season.